Yay. Okay, so if you're here for practical chemistry, you're in the right place. The reason I call this course practical chemistry is because we're going to try and make it like applicable to your life, not just the theory of chemistry, but why do I care, you know? And that matters because you don't learn something if you don't care that you're learning it. And so if it applies to your life, you'll have a lot more reason to remember it. And also in the well-educated heart, oh, I clicked too early, but anyway, we're trying to get to the heart of things, right? Not just like I crammed a whole bunch of information in my brain, but rather like the beauty of learning itself and of what the world is. And chemistry is a whole lot about the wonder of the world around us. And so I'd like it to be a fascinating experience where you say, wow, this is all really cool. So that's our goal with chemistry. So a little bit about who I am. My name is Kristen Wilkinson. As I said before, grew up in the Air Force, so I sort of grew up all over. But lately, we live in northern Utah. We've come back here multiple times, so every time we move away, we end up moving back. So I suspect that we'll probably have this as home base forever. We're in North Logan, if you guys know the northern part of Utah at all. And anyway, I studied in school mechanical and aerospace engineering and worked in the aerospace industry in the beginning of my marriage and loved that. I love space exploration. So that to me was super cool. I got to be there for some spacecraft launches, you know, where you're like the person in front of the screen that you see in the movies where you're saying, yes, we're a go for launch, propulsion systems, you know, whatever. So I got to do that just a little bit. Then I had kids. And so I quit working and was able to raise my 4 kids. And that's a picture of them there, who my youngest just graduated from high school. So that's sort of a life change for me. And my oldest just got married. And then I got a master's degree in instructional technology and learning sciences, which is where I got into the fascinating love of how do we actually learn? And if you take chemistry from me, we will talk about that, because what's the point of spending all your time on something if you're not actually going to learn it? Maybe it's interesting in the time and that's okay, but how we actually learn is an interesting science too. And the way education has worked for years and years has not changed a whole lot, despite everything that we've learned about our brains and psychology. And so I will not be perfect, but I will try at least to incorporate some of those elements into our coursework and the way we learn. But in the end, it will all matter. It all comes down to what you choose to do. I can't force anybody. I can't force information into your brain. But if you spend time on anything, you will learn. That's just the way it works. So hobbies, I love to read. I love books. I love dancing. Like ballet is my love. And I love to sing. I'm in like 2 choirs currently, and we'll see. I'm actually, for those of you who know it, I'm auditioning for the Tabernacle Choir this like next month. So, you know, wish me luck. It's a pretty long shot, but anyway. All right. So that's me. Practical chemistry, what is it? I want us to learn in this class to understand what we encounter in life. So if it's something you do every day and you want to know how it works, chemistry can help you understand how it works. We use chemistry all the time I put this picture of cleaning because cleaning supplies are all chemicals. These are chemicals we use every day, right? And you might say, oh, it's a safe chemical because it's in my house. But generally, that's not really true. It's all about the dosage with chemicals. And so depending on how dilute they are or how concentrated they are, they can be dangerous. And so it's worth you knowing what's in your house, what it does, how these things interact, how if you mix certain cleaners, you'll end up with toxic gases that could kill you, or how not to do that, right? So we're going to do things about cleaning. We're going to do a whole lot about cooking. There's a whole lot in cooking and baking that is chemistry, because we talk about the changes of things when you apply heat to them, what happens with them, or what are the chemicals that cause rising in bread or that cause, the sweetening when you cook onions. Why do they become sweet when you cook them a long time and caramelize them? And so all of those things are chemistry. So we'll talk about those chemistry things. We're going to do labs every week. There are 2 different kinds of labs we'll do. We'll do what we call home labs, and those are things that you can do at home. If you want a real chemistry lab, it's really hard to do it in your home because there's a whole lot of safety that is necessary to do a lot of the chemical experiments that you might do in a high school chemistry class, for example. But I do have some alternative books that if you have either a homeschool group or engaged parents who really want to do this with you, I wouldn't suggest you do it alone. But with adults and some safety, I have some recommendations of books that you can choose to buy, things that you can actually just mail order and do at home that are more intense chemistry experiments. But As part of class, we will not be doing those. We'll instead be just doing things that are relatively safe that you can do in your home with things you mostly have around the house. So you might need to buy a few things, and those things you should buy in advance so that you have them on hand when you need them. I'll try and warn you of those things, but mostly we'll do things around the house. So that's the first type of lab is a home lab. So every week you'll either have a home lab or you'll have an online lab. We have an online lab simulator called Labster. And so you might use Labster to like do a simulated lab, and I'll show you that in a little while. So usually you'll have one or the other of those and not both. Every once in a while, they might double up. And so those home labs are really important because we'll assign them, you do them during the week, and then you come to class and you get to share the results. So if it's something you've done, you can say to your classmates, hey, I did this and this happened. And they can say, well, I did this and this other thing happened. And we're like, well, why did that happen? And we ask those questions about, how could you make that work out better next time? Or what do you think happened where you live that's different than where they live, or that you did a different temperature, or you added a different amount, or whatever. And that's what we do with those home labs. Given that, you can hopefully predict better outcomes with stuff you do every day: cooking, cleaning, powering stuff with batteries. That's all chemistry. And so hopefully that's something that you'll enjoy because you can start to actually understand and fix things. All right, for this class, because it's online, you absolutely need either a computer or a tablet that has internet access. A phone is very difficult. You can try and make it work, but it's hard on the small screen to get all the information you need. It is possible if you're determined, but we also are using an online textbook, and on a phone that's also difficult to read small text and to comprehend all of the different things on there. But you can if you want. Also, I will provide a PDF of that textbook that you can download. Then if you have like a Kindle or some kind of an e-reader, you can do it that way, or you can print the thing. And then you don't have to be online as much, which is sometimes really nice. I forgot to say resources needed here are a notebook. You absolutely need to keep a notebook. That's what you're going to turn in every week, but it's also one of these critical ways to learn. To truly engage with the material as you're reading, you should be taking notes on what you're reading, put the highlights, put questions of the things you don't understand, and we'll talk about them in class. And so you'll keep track of that learning in a notebook, and sometimes print stuff out and add it to a notebook as well. So, oh, and also in that online textbook, there are practice exercises. And so you will do practice exercises online. So even if you're reading it in the PDF, you'll want to hop online and do those practice exercises sometimes. And there will also be quizzes in that online class that you will do. Like I said, you're going to need some basic materials for the home labs. Most of that's pretty reasonably what you have around. You might want to buy some glass beakers. That says class beakers. It's supposed to say glass. So sorry, typo there. You can use like Pyrex measuring cups if you don't want to buy chemistry beakers, but you will definitely do better if you have a digital scale. So if you don't have like a kitchen scale, that's something you might want to buy, and they're really inexpensive. There's some links in the class. You'll need some pans in the kitchen for cooking. And you definitely need curiosity. It's so much better if you say, why did that happen? Or what might happen if I do such and such? And then you try another thing with that curiosity. All right. And your expectations for daily class, or weekly class, we come once a week. It's at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays. So come ready to be part of the class, to participate. We will sometimes do quizzes at the beginning. We'll definitely share the labs that people did. We will always start with a prayer and inspirational thought, and people will rotate through that. You don't have to. I'm basically going to volunteer you all and assign you unless you tell me not to. If you tell me you don't want to be part of that, then that's fine. But we will have a prayer and we will share inspiration. And that can be anything from, it can be the inspiration you got from the science experiment you did that week. It can be inspiration you got in nature, in church. If you're doing Well-Educated Heart, there's the monthly studies we're doing, and there might be a month that, it's this thing in history that has you inspired that week. It doesn't have to be on the subject of chemistry. What we really want to do is expand our hearts and minds together during that inspiration time and just get excited about things. So whatever is most exciting and inspirational to you is what we'd want you to share in class. So then you're expected to read every week, do those practice sets I said, take notes, take the quizzes, and all of those things together are mostly what your weekly thing is. Then 2 times in the year, once in the first semester, once in the second, you'll have a bigger project. The first project is on the elements. So basically, we'll get a periodic table like this one, and you'll get to say, hey, I'm going to pick, osmium, or you can just pick whatever you want. You'll sign up. Everybody gets to sign up for an element, and you will dive deep into that element. What is that? Tell us all about it. What does it do? What do we use it for? And that's actually super fun to learn from your classmates about all the different elements. The second semester, your project, you sort of get to pick on your own. I have a whole long list of ideas. You can say, this is an experiment I want to do, because you'll know a lot more about chemistry at that point. And so you can design either a chemistry experiment or a chemistry investigation project report. You investigate something and then present that all to us. And that is basically what happens in a year. Now, I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. This class is considered to be a supplement to what your parents are doing alone. So if I have any parents here listening, the Well-Educated Heart Academy classes are not graded classes. So I am not a grader. I will give feedback on all the work that your students do, but I don't give them a grade at the end of the year. So if you're a homeschool and you want a grade, then you as parents need to gather those materials together, put some sort of grade on it. And I will give like a sheet, like a list of all the things possible and some suggestions on how you might want to add that up and do that grade. But that is not something that is provided by the teacher of this class. I am instead meant to be the teacher and a resource. I'll give you more information. I will answer questions. We'll dig into things together. The students always ask questions I don't know the answers to. So I'm not going to pretend that I know everything, but we can learn stuff together, which is super fun. So that is the basic of that. Did I talk too fast? Does anyone have any questions right now? It's Mondays. Chemistry on Mondays at 11. I was right about 11. I teach math on Tuesdays at 11. So sorry. So math level for this chemistry is not critical. Now,
Okay, good.
you can do a lot of math in chemistry, and ideally, eventually you will, but in this class, we will do some balancing equations. So your basic pre-algebra is probably plenty. The more you have, the easier that will be when we get to balancing equations, but we don't spend a whole lot of time doing that. So if it's difficult for you, you won't have it be difficult for too long, and you'll learn some algebra while you're at it. It's kind of simple representational math. So it's the logic of math is really helpful, but you don't have to be at an advanced level of math for this class. I will say about chemistry in general, learning the subject of chemistry, I feel like it's a little bit difficult and you're welcome, because you need to know this part of chemistry in order to understand that part, but you actually need to understand that part to understand this part. And so it's really hard with chemistry to even know where to start, because everything is interrelated. So like you get to balancing equations, well, you need to know what things react with what things. But if you're trying to decide what reacts with what, you actually need to know about atomic theory. And to know about atomic theory, you have to know this other thing. And you can't do, so anyway, we kind of learn all of it in a circle. And then hopefully you come back to chemistry again and you do that whole circle again, but with that foundational knowledge you got the first time, and it all makes more sense and you can go deeper into chemistry. So, maybe you'll take chemistry later in the university and be able to do the labs and have a much better understanding of that. So let's see. I do have a question here. It says, is the class itself live? Yes. So class on Mondays at 11 is a live Zoom class exactly like this. So I'll be sitting here in this desk and we'll be interacting with each other. All right, I'll just show you a couple other things on just what the book looks like and what Labster is like, just so you kind of have some idea. Okay, great. So basically, this will be your chemistry book. It's the CK12. It's a freely available resource book, but it allows me to edit the textbook. So like the CK12 chemistry for high school, I have taken sections out and put a couple things in to be exactly what I want it to be for this class. So basically, you can see that there are chapters and sections. And so you'll read through a section here, and then you can view the practice and do the practice sets. Now, I highly recommend you do all of these practice sets, but I will like actually assign some of them. And those are the ones that I think are most important to do that practice on. And that will be sort of the equivalent of doing exercises and things like that. So sometimes it's just knowledge checks, and sometimes it's actually like doing some problems and figuring out the answers. The other thing I wanted to show you is Labster, and that's this online tool. So basically, if you go to Labster, it'll show you this, it'll give you a little bit of an intro of what the thing is, and then you'll press play. And my computer slows down when I'm doing Zoom. And so this might actually be a little too much for it because these are pretty intensive on the processors. So yeah, it's not quite going to do it. You see that 0% loading, it has to load. But basically, you actually get to like click your cursor and move things around, and you can, weigh things or make things heavier or lighter or put different amounts of chemicals in, and basically do a virtual version of the labs that we can't do because it's not exactly safe at home and we can't provide the chemicals and the hoods and all the safe environment to do those labs in. And then the last thing I guess I'll show you is if you haven't had a Well-Educated Heart Academy, or class with Well-Educated Heart Academy, we're hosted on Mighty Networks. And so it's more of an interactive platform than it is a learning management system. And what that means is it's not like all set up just for grading and things like that. It's more just a presentation of the material. So if we go to chemistry class, you'll see this banner and you'll be able to see course materials, and you can click, for example, materials needed for this course, and you can work through sections of the course like this. So slow to load, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go. So it'll like have readings. Sometimes this will be videos, and in fact, there will always be videos every week for you to watch. And then there will be like a quiz maybe at the end, or you can see these assignments. This first assignment, homework you can eat, is to make caramels. That's the very first thing we do in the whole class with very few instructions. And then you see how they turn out. And then at the very end of class, with everything you've learned about chemistry, you'll make the caramels again and see if you can make them better than you did the first time. So that's just a very brief intro to this layout. If you have not signed up yet, if you're a parent, you have a parent account to Mighty Networks where you can interact and chat with everyone, but you have to have your student's account signed up to Mighty Networks and sign up for the classes through the student account, not through the parent account. There's no way as a parent to sign up a student besides making an account for them. All right. That's basically it. Have a great day, everyone.